Welcome back to the Cheap Heat Productions podcast. Okay, welcome back to the show. I have an exclusive and rare interview today. Mr. Brian Donahue, actor, stuntman, professional wrestler, all-around sports player. You've done it all, Brian. How are you?
Good. I've done a few things. Maurice, first of all, I'd like to say from the get-go, thank you so much for having me on your show. It is absolutely wonderful. And I'm not sucking up because I'm already here. And I just want to say that it's the show is well done, and just the interviews have been brilliant. And I've been doing my homework and just checking things out, and it's fabulous. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Brian. Yeah, we kind of do pop culture show, so we'd have people from wrestling, TV, movies. You fit into all these things anyway, so you're definitely an ideal guest for today.
Wonderful, wonderful.
The first thing I have to ask is, I'm Irish. Your name is Brian Donahue. You were known as the Dublin Destroyer in the WWF.
The Dublin Destroyer, yes, sir.
There has to be an Irish connection somewhere, would you?
There absolutely is. I mean, I come from just south of Boston, Quincy, Massachusetts. I don't want to go. I don't want to open up that fourth wall, but I'm actually not from Dublin. I don't know if you picked up the Boston accent, but anyhow, I'm fifth generation Irish out of Boston, and I think we might be related. We all are. It's an Irish thing.
Who knows? Yeah,
that's right.
Well, Donahue is a very common name. It's a very common name over here in Ireland, so there's definitely some connection there somewhere.
Well, I believe our family actually is from County Cork, and the town I grew up in, just south of Boston, Quincy, is the sister city to Cork in Ireland. And I believe we've got some Viking blood in us over there, and needless to say, the Irish and the gift of gab. You know what I'm saying? It all ties in. Yeah.
Do you like a glass of whiskey?
You know what? I did years ago, Maurice. I'll be quite open about that. I have been over the years. I stopped drinking like 32 years ago now.
Wow.
And I just, I mean, when you're a kid growing up in Boston, you started about 11. So by the time everyone else is just getting into it, you've been there, done that, and you pretty much, it's, you don't need it anymore, really. But I do enjoy buying other people bottles of whiskey and as gifts, and if their name is Maurice, especially. And yes, but yeah, I'm a great host, and I'm a great one to go out with. And half the time, people just out of being in the surroundings, people say, "Is he drunk? Is he drinking?" And they're like, "No, he hasn't had a drink in over 32 years." And they go, "Oh, then there's something wrong with the boy." Like, yeah, that could be it too.
You don't need it.
No, not now. No. But anyway.
Yeah, what I was going to ask you, when you were growing up,
yes, sir.
What interest did you have? Did you want to go into sports full time? Did you want to go into acting? Did you want to do both, or what was your goals?
Well, okay, growing up in Boston, I had a very interesting family, to say the least. And my family comes from they used to put on the vaudeville shows and the variety shows and such. And so as a young boy, I was taken to different, shows and different events at different churches and different facilities. And I remember at 10 years old going into Walpole Prison state penitentiary with the family while they were up there singing and dancing. And I'm looking and I'm saying, even as a kid, I said, this is an interesting crowd. And but I had an aunt, Beatrice Canella. She, God rest her soul, just died 2 years ago. But anyway, Beatrice and my Uncle George were professional dancers with Arthur Murray. They were an international touring group with Arthur Murray Dance Studios. And at 5 years old, she would have me doing the waltz, the rumba, the cha-cha, the foxtrot, etc., like Dancing with the Stars. Yeah. And then she would grab me at 5 years old and said, a woman wants to feel like she's being held firmly. And I said, okay, I'm 5 years old. I don't even know what that means. Anyway, I grew up also with a lot of sports people in my life. My uncles, my brothers, my family, many friends were pretty hardcore athletes up there, whether it be football, track and field, wrestlers, et cetera, et cetera. And so I kind of got the full gambit. I kind of got a taste of everything, and I fell in love with everything. So I had, the theater background. I had the dance background. I had the athletic background. And just kind of, it's kind of instilled to this day, Maurice. It gels, and I kind of take all of them and I put them together, and I parlay one into the other, back to the other, back to the other, and then I combine them all. So I've been fortunate over the years to be a stunt actor, where I am able to play my own characters, and then along with that, do my own stunts and do my own action. But okay, I went a little off track there, but okay.
No, you're grand.
I'm sorry?
No, I said you're cool. Yep, you're good.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, like I say, I always did love the sports. I always did love the stage, and yeah. So yeah, I had a good head start when I was young.
Yeah. Did you focus on the football first, Brian?
Yeah, actually, I was a football player since I was 9 years old. I was a Quincy Elk. All these other teams, Maurice, had the Apaches and the Raiders and the Killers and the Stranglers, and we were the Quincy Elks, based on the Quincy Elks Lodge. And everyone else had these cool helmets with these vicious emblems and these growling Vikings and stuff. We had a little elk, and it looked like a little jackalope. It was a little elk head with these giant antlers, and it was smiling at the yeah. So anyway, yeah, I was a Quincy Elk, and then worked my way up into high school. Got involved through my brother was a shot putter, my uncles were shot putters, etc. And I got into track and field and football, so I was doing both. We didn't have a wrestling team at the high school. I probably would have jumped in there too. But I was a football player primarily, and then got into track and field. And then track and field started to really take center stage for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was involved in sports from a very young age all the way up. Actually, my mom, I should go back a little bit more. When I was 6 years old, I believe, my mother used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry, she passed. Yep. She used to take me at 3 o'clock in the morning, because it was the only time the young kids could get the ice time, because it was very, very tight. And she would drive me down to a rink, which was 45 minutes away, and sit there for 2.5 hours while I wasn't very good. I had to learn, but skate, fall, that type of thing.
Yeah, so she deserves a lot of credit then for the kind of career path you went down, for sure.
So yeah, absolutely.
I seen a nickname online, but you don't know if what you read online is true. Where's the nickname the Sled Slayer come from?
The Sled Slayer, absolutely. Hook 'em Horns, Texas Longhorns. I was down there in 1982 on the Texas football team, the Longhorns, in Austin, Texas. And we were doing drills in the 2-a-day camps in August. It was 120 degrees on the field because there was a giant thermometer on the side. We had new AstroTurf with really attracted the sun. So it was 120 on the field. Guys were dropping left and right. We're doing a 7-man blocking sled type of scheme for defense now. I was a nose tackle, and we're hitting the sled. We came to the middle sled, and I hit this thing so hard. I was strong. I was a strong boy. And I hit, it was an Irish Fury. I hit this thing, and I broke the hinges off it. And it wasn't one of those easy sleds that just have one little thing that goes like this. It was all attached in 6 different spots. I broke every hinge off it. Then when I saw it was broken off, I took it and I threw it at the coaches. And I said, I think you're going to have to get this one fixed. Right then, Jeff Lighting, who was a linebacker, he's also passed on. Everyone's passed in my life, Maurice. I mean, we're the only ones left here. And Jeff Lighting was a middle linebacker. He looked like General Custer, good friend of mine at Texas. And he turned and he goes, my boy, there's a sled slayer. Well, that stuck. That was my nickname now for, and it still is. Guys I talk to, you know, I give them a call, they give me a call, or they send text or whatever, or emails, and Laurie picks up the Facebook stuff. And it's yeah, Sled Slayer. How's the Sled Slayer? I'm still going.
Yeah, the Sled Slayer, was that a nickname you could carry over to the wrestling world, or did you?
You know what? I thought about it a little bit. I think I did use it a few times, but no one quite got what the heck I was talking about. And then I was Brian the Basher, and then I was just Brian Donahue. And then when I jumped up and I was with Vince with WWF, and what happened there was I was working nightclubs, I was working construction, I was doing all kinds of odd jobs to make ends meet while I was trying to develop, commercial and small TV roles, and I was involved just getting going with wrestling at the same time, everything at once. And I was at the club one night, and I'm working the front door, and it was good. It was good for me to deal with people, and I didn't have to hit anyone. There's no need. People, if they have a bad night, they have a bad night. We deal with it in a distinguished way and with some eloquence. Anyway, a gentleman came up, and he's talking to me out front, and he was he wasn't homeless, but he was pretty close to it. But he was telling me that he was a former tailor. He was a tailor. He was a tailor years ago who fell on hard times years ago, and his family had all either passed on or moved away, and he was on his own. Anyway, he said, you need a ring jacket. You need something. I've seen you on TV, and you're the guy that, you fight all the guys with WWF. He goes, I gotta get you a jacket. The next week, he came in and he gave me this beautiful silk jacket, and it had the embroidery on the back, and it said, he goes, I hope you don't mind, but I kind of threw a name in there, and it said the Dublin Destroyer. A week later, we're up in Portland, Maine. I'm in the ring. Mike McGirt is announcing, and she said, ladies and gentlemen, currently in the ring, and this was a big match. I think it was against Bret Hart possibly, and she said, and I stopped her for a second, acting like I was playing the heel. I was trying to, pretend that I was going to hurt her or whatever. And she goes, what? And she covered the mic. I said, Mike, I'm the Dublin Destroyer tonight. She goes, you're the what? I turned and I showed her the jacket, and she goes, have you cleared? Well, Vince is a businessman and it's his show. Have you cleared this with Vince? And I go, and I was going to lie, but she was going to check and I'd be dead anyway. So I said, no, not as of yet, but I'm sure he'll love it. She goes, I got to check. She went over to Gorilla and a couple of the people down there, Tony Gurria, and she said, he said that they called it backstage. A minute later, she comes over and she looks at me and she goes, my God, you Boston guys are crazy. She said, ladies and gentlemen, currently in the ring at 6'5", 320 pounds, the Dublin Destroyer. And that was it. And we're off and running. So we ended up with the moniker, the Dublin Destroyer. Yeah. And I love it.
How did you get into the WWF?
Okay. What happened there was I was again still working the wrestling, but I was doing the small circuits. I was doing with the Savoldis here in New York. I was doing shows with Tony Atlas and such on Sports Channel, working with Herb Abrams' group, UWF, the smaller circuits, small high school shows, college shows, et cetera, et cetera. And a gentleman said, a gentleman who was Al Schaefer was his name. he was a worker, a journeyman for WWF for years, who had come in through Terry Garvin and a couple of the other established gentlemen from WWF. And he said, "Listen, you ever thought about?" He goes, "Jumping to the big time. You ever thought about going up and with Vince and working with WWF?" And I said, "Well," I said, "no, I've never had any contact with them or this and that. I don't even know how to approach that. I think you got to put years and years in, but." Again, my life up until that point had been jumping. I was all over the place. Yep. So I had never been with one thing for a huge amount of time. So I said, "How do I do that?" And he goes, "Well, let me talk to Terry Garvin and Pat Patterson and Gorilla and these guys, and let me see what we can do." Well, obviously, I'm going in, and I'm going to have to work my way in, and hopefully get into the good graces of these gentlemen who have been giving their whole lives to this, and let them know that I'm not a threat. I'm just here to help you and to help this show progress. And I knew what I was there for, and I knew that I was there to give 200% like I have in everything else I've done in my life. And so I had my first match in Worcester in 1991, the Worcester Centrum. Well, I went, now picture this, Maurice, I'm walking out, the shows I'm talking about. I went out where my family was the only one in the audience, and a couple of other people who were sitting with their chairs facing the other way because they were drinking so much. I went from that, no joke, I went from that to, ladies and gentlemen, currently making his way to the ring at 6'4", 250 pounds, whatever they said, 290, whatever. And I come walking out, the curtain opened at the Worcester Centrum. Wow. I said, what is this? Right? 15,000 people, TV cameras, the lights are going, the whole thing. Now I'm in the ring, all right? And I got my family up here because we're all from Boston, so I got, a slew of tickets. Arnold Skoland used to always give me a bunch of tickets for family or just people in the small towns to promote. And all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, currently making his way to the ring at 6'3", 285 pounds, the British Bulldog. Well, I thought that place was going to collapse. It was so loud and so exciting. And I went in my first match, and I had a great match with him. And it was solid, and it was smooth. And I said, yeah, I've worked hard enough, because I realized then, in that moment, that I had worked at so many different things that I could use in this ring. So I had done my homework. I didn't have to work my way up for years and years because I had been.
Yeah.
And it was kind of neat. It was a good feeling. And I had a great rapport with all the boys in the locker room, all management, WWF in Stamford. I always had a great rapport with them. I used to love going up to Stamford, and I do training sessions on weeknights. And because at that point we didn't have a ring, Gleason's had kind of bumped us out a little because they needed more room for the boxers, and now UWF was starting to fizzle around. And so we didn't have the space. So I'd end up going up, and Vince was very accommodating to me, letting me train at the warehouse up in Stamford, across from where 95 North, across from where the corporate offices are. People don't know, but down the other side of the 95, there's a huge warehouse where they store all their equipment, and they have all their promos taped and this and that. And they had rings set up. And I went in there a couple of days a week on weekdays and trained. And a lot of times guys would be there doing promos. Macho Man, the Hearts, Ric Flair would pop in. They'd be in there doing promos in different segments and, just simulcast. They were doing all this stuff. And I would, when prime time was big and the whole thing, and they'd be doing a big conference table deal, and they would come out and they'd work with me. Because they saw them a little younger when they were first coming up. And they realized, well, this kid has the right attitude. He's in it, not for himself, but for the show as a whole, which was wonderful. So I remember, sitting there and having coffee with Lord Alfred Hayes and Mean Gene Okerlund, and just sitting there chatting. And these guys are legends, but they couldn't be more down to earth.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing too. So,
one thing I always ask people is,
yes.
have you got any stories about Vince McMahon? Everyone's got their own opinions on him and different things like that. All positive from people I've talked to within the business, but
And
he's
you're
got a
going to have
crazy
another
mind.
and well, you're going to have another positive here. My first show, okay, we're at the Worcester Centrum, and we finish, and people all said to me, listen, Vince is in the house tonight. Do not approach him. Do not go near him. Do not bother him, with anything. He goes, just, kind of, if he approaches you, fine. But that's the way it's done with us. And I understand. Well, gift the gab again from Boston. He comes walking in, he's standing there, and there's only a few people. I want to say Roddy Piper was there, and who was in the room? It was Legion of Doom. All right, a few bunch of us sitting there, and all of a sudden McMahon walks in, and he kind of walks in, handsome dude, walks in the double-breasted suit and the whole thing, the silk tie, and he stands there and he looks around the room. I get up and they go, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't sit down, sit down." I went over. I go, "Mr. McMahon, I'm Brian Donahue." He goes, "Yes, hi, how are you?" "Yeah, pleasure." And I said, "Listen, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. This was wonderful." I said, "If I'm not back again, okay, but I said I had this experience, and I want to thank you for that." "Well, thank you, Brian." And he smiled, and just a good guy. I mean, he's a businessman. He's a strong, focused business guy who has a big company to run. So I found him, I mean, like I say, any boss is going to be tough here and there, but he was always fine with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Who was your favorite person to work with in the ring?
Well, I'd have to say both Bret Hart and Owen, they were wonderful. And just all of that, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Legion of Doom, and the natural disasters, earthquake and typhoon, they were fabulous. Everyone I worked with, Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, all these guys, they were all really, really great to work with. One quick thing, and I won't go on a long tangent, but they told me, they would write in the backstage, they would write on a giant chalkboard, and they would say the listing for each hour for that night. We'd be doing TV tapings. And so they would write this one. Well, sometimes they'd have someone write it that didn't have the best penmanship. All right. They didn't go to Catholic school like me. So they didn't have, so they're writing this, scratching this stuff out. And all of a sudden I look and I said, wow, I'm in the first hour, third match. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Then I'm in the second one, then I'm thinking, which would be for different tapings, during the month. All of a sudden I looked and I go, I said, I'm working with Jake the Snake. It said Snake versus Dublin Destroyer. Great. Third match. I find Jake the Snake. I go, I said, "Sir," I said, "Jake," I said, he goes, "Hey, how you doing, Dublin? What's up?" Tough. They're all tough dudes. He goes, I go, we'll be working together tonight. I just want to touch base with you. I just want to say hello. Great. And we're talking a few things out, whatever. And great. So now Jake is, we're about 5 minutes from our match. Jake's over there and he's got the snake in the bag, and I'm over here and I'm looking at him. We're eyeing each other. Kill you, great. And they're doing, the crowd's going nuts. You could hear it feel like the rafters, the place going to collapse. And all of a sudden they said, "Have you talked to Jimmy Snuka?" And I go, "No." Rene Goulet says, "Have you talked to Jimmy Snuka?" I go, "No." What about what? He goes, "You guys are third match." I go, "What are you talking about?" I said, "It's Jake the Snake versus Dublin Destroyer." He goes, "No, wait, no, that says Snuka." So now I go, "Jake, no." Right? He's like, "I got the snake ready." Like, what are you talking about? I have to find Snuka. Well, we're in this giant arena. So where is he, right? I got to go find him and let him know, because, I should have been the one to tell him, "Hey, we got to be up third." All of a sudden they go, "He's down in the himself." I go, "Okay." So I get out of this locker room. And it was one of those old hockey locker rooms, and it smelled terrible. I went in there and the door was cracked, and I could see the light just from the bathroom in there. And I see someone sitting facing that way, facing away, right? With the light hitting them. It's Snuka. Well, I had never met him. I go, "Mr. Snooker." hello, kid. And I go, and I couldn't really understand him. He was talking so low, and he goes, what do you do? What do you want? I said, we're working together. He goes, when do we work? I said, in about 5 minutes. He goes, 5 minutes. What do you say? He goes, all right. He goes, we'll go in. He goes, I do the pad, the thing, and you kind of, when I do right pad, you kind of. He goes, what Taco do in the ring? What? Do in the ring? I said, how about you tell me a little more now? Then I'll be okay. No, we got in there. It was fabulous. All of a sudden, he turned and he leaned over to pull that right pad up, and he looked over at me and he goes, like he was cueing me. You know what I'm saying? Let's be honest, he was cueing me. But he was so good and so great at this game that he knew that there was no sweat.
Yeah.
Same with the Hearts. Same with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Same with Legion of Doom. All these guys, they are consummate pros, and they are pros at what they do, and they're just fabulous. So I didn't have any bad experiences, and I actually had a great rapport with everyone. Backstage as well as in the ring, so that was great.
Let's talk a little bit about stunt work and the dangers that entails with that. I had Ken Kersinger on the show a few weeks ago. He's a wonderful stuntman as well. He was in Freddy vs. Jason, various other films.
Of course.
And I was talking to him about just the dangers of, like, he was telling me that people have been killed doing things like this. Like, what's the most dangerous thing that you've ever done?
Well, I've had several hard hits over the years. I'll give you a quick example. I was working on a show years ago, and again, no fault to the coordinators, no fault, just the nature of the beast. It is what it is. But I was working on a show called Third Watch, and basically I was going to be harnessed to a cable, and I was going to be 4 stories up the side of a building, on the side of a building, and there was going to be scaffolding all underneath me. Well, they had wood there, but it was actual, planks. And what they did is they scored them out so they would break away. But basically, I was on a decelerator cable, which means I will drop full speed that first story. And then as I get towards the bottom, the spindle would wind down and like a parachute ride at an amusement park. And you would slow before, obviously, you hit the ground. We're getting ready to do it. And I'm harnessed up, the whole thing, and they go, well, we're gonna do a little bit of a test. They take a 300-pound anvil, okay, and they put this thing on the wire that I'm gonna be attached to, and they go, all right, without the boards there, obviously, because they don't want to break them yet.
Yeah.
And they dropped it in 3, 2, 1, drop, and it was supposed to be the whole scaffolding shakes and everything starts falling. Well, this anvil went down and dug itself this deep into the ground. Didn't stop. And I said, okay. They go, okay, let's hook them up. Let's shoot it. And I said, well, wait. The anvil is around. That's going to be me in a second. I said, can we test it again? No, we're good. We did it. The spindle worked great. There was a wire across the bottom of the scaffolding that obviously the anvil is thinner than me. It didn't hit. When I dropped, I caught the back of my right leg on the wire. My foot went under the piping of the scaffolding, and I snapped back. The wire went across my face, and I had a contusion this big, a blood sac in the back of my leg for probably a year. It is still numb, and that was in 2001 or 2000. So yeah, that was a bang up. I've cracked my neck. I've had my eye socket kicked in. Cracked my eye socket. You break fingers all the time. Knees and quadricep tendon snapping in half. And sometimes it could be the simplest bit, but you take the hits, and you bought. It's like running a car for hundreds of thousands of miles. After a while, things just start going that shouldn't go. Like, I didn't do anything to this part of my body, but it's given up on me too. So you're just trying to keep yourself going and functioning. I've been, my back has been wrenched. My back has been out, pulled muscles, shoulders, pulled out. The list goes on. I look like that chart when you draw a chart, a medical chart. This. If you dotted that up, there'd be more pixels than me. So go ahead.
How many bones do you think you've broken?
Well, if you count all the little ones and the feet and everything else, probably maybe 100, 200. But I'm saying, but if you count big ones like wrists and ankles and knees and things and eye socket, well, yeah, that's a bone. Eye socket and ear, that whole thing. My neck actually got cracked, so it was a break in the neck, but obviously no paralyzation, thank God. Knock on wood, no. But 100 plus. I mean, over the years. And between wrestling, the stunt work, live shows, just everywhere. But yeah, so yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, some of that was detailed in the documentary, which we're going to talk about now. That I seen.
Yes, sir.
I seen only a couple of months ago. Do you want to explain to people? I'll put the link in this video of the documentary, but do you want to explain to people how it came about?
How the documentary came about? Sure.
Yeah.
I actually I had an audition for a commercial. It was for an online commercial for Aetna, Aetna Healthcare, and they were going to do this thing where they were doing the Aetna sleep study, and basically they were looking for stunt people, and they wanted to show that these people have to face the rigors every day and live a tough lifestyle, so they should be able to adapt and handle any situation. Well, now they're showing how sleep affects people that are, by all other accounts, on point all the time. Well, I go in for this audition. It's at a big studio in Manhattan, and it's a bunch of stunt people, but they're all in their 20s. The oldest one was like 30s, and at that point, I'm in my 50s. So I'm in there, and I'm feeling like someone's grandfather, and I'm sitting there looking at them. They don't. These kids are so new, they don't even know who I am yet. And I'm not saying it like that, but they didn't know that I've been around a long time, thinking this old guy thinks he's a stunt guy, and they're kind of snickering, I think. That's okay. So they bring us in, and they say, okay, now, and they wanted to do a verbal resume. They just want to get a feel for you. Basically, that was the audition. And then they were going to put these goggles on you. They were going to have you pour like a pitcher of water, make a sandwich, do all these simple tasks that people do every day, and then show what sleep depravity can do to people by putting these goggles on that would give the illusion that you were that exhausted, that tired, because they were all blurred out. It was very scientific. And so the worst part was when we did the thing with the pitcher, that I poured the water better with the goggles on. That was kind of strange. But anyway, I was the reverse. But they asked, tell us a little bit about yourself. So I went through a quick resume. I said, I come from a sporting background. I did this and this and this, and acting and film and TV and the Walt Disney World. Then I went here. Then I was, the Dublin Destroyer WWF. And then I said everything but that I was an astronaut, landed on the moon before the other guy. You know what I'm saying? So they're looking at me like, this guy, he just wants the gig. He's desperate. He's the old guy that thinks he's the stuntman. And the director kept asking me these questions. E.J. McClevey Fisher, a prominent up-and-coming director. He's fabulous. He's out of Williamsburg, and now he's down in Jersey. But he just was on point with the documentary. But anyway, he kept asking me questions, and I said, this has nothing to do with Aetna or this commercial. I could just tell. But he's like, so tell me about that again. What happened there? And then you've been doing film and TV, and he kept asking me these questions, and he's writing notes. Well, we get an email from him probably a few days later, and he says, listen, if half the stuff you told us in that room is true, he goes, oh, by the way, we're going to be doing this commercial, but just not with you. They were looking for younger, with big letters, younger. It like jumped at me. I get it. So anyway, he said, but I'd love to get together with you. If you have any old footage, any old, I don't know if you have anything but tapes, pictures, anything that I can kind of browse through to get a feel for you more. And then so I can kind of see how I would do a documentary piece on you. And I said, well, okay. So my wife, Laurie, you saw her in the documentary, she's been my mainstay for 35 plus years. And she just was on point. She put together this stuff. I left here to meet him at a diner over in Northern Boulevard and on Long Island. Oh, so I went to meet him. I walked in. The box was so big and heavy, I had to have the bus boys help me carry it up the stairs. We get it in. I go, here's those tapes you wanted. He goes, my God, but they're all VHS. All right, showing my age now. They're all VHS tapes, and Maurice just goes, VHS. I heard of that, but it was so bad that EJ had to go and buy at a flea market a VHS player. He had to go buy a machine from the archives. Had to push the dust off the tapes, and just to get some footage that he wanted, some archival footage. Well, anyway, EJ said, I think we can do something, and I'd love to do an initial interview with you and Laurie. We did that over in Sunset Gardens, Sunnyside Gardens in Queens. We did that in an old pool hall, the opening of the documentary. And he was so good at lining this thing up. He had all these questions for her and I separately to just kind of base it, and then he would take and go into the archives, and then some footage that he came up with that we shot. And so we started shooting this thing, and you still don't know how it's going to come out because it's you and it's your wife. It's like, well, is it going to be interesting because we lived it? Sometimes when you live something and it's been so stretched out for 35, 40 years that it doesn't seem that interesting to you. But he goes, but you've hit on a lot of different mediums. He goes, so people are going to find interest in at least one of those, and then combined, they're going to enjoy it. Well, he sent us a rough copy. This took years, by the way, because their schedule, our schedule, the whole thing, it takes time. And he sent a rough copy. Well, I watched it here. I watched it on my phone, and I'm looking at it. Tears rolling down my eyes, no exaggeration. And I said, it's wonderful. I said, because one thing, you're playing back everything that you've done in your life, pretty much it's your life story in front of you, but it was so well put together with the editor Eric Ollie and Joe Victorine, the director of photography, and Veronica Balta, EJ's wife, as the producer. I mean, they were just so good. The stunt people involved, and with friends of theirs, and Leo. I mean, just Leo, the stunt coordinator. And they were fabulous. It just what a nice group. And they did music. And I'm sorry. And the music by my wife is cueing me over here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now you know that I'm not really in a fancy studio, huh?
Neither am I. Not at the moment.
Yeah. Wu-Tang? No, what's it? Go ahead. Anyway, so so he put this together, and he said he didn't want to market it too much or sell it, to a group. And then he goes, the best route for this is to he wasn't looking at it to profit. He was looking at it to show his work and to show the other people's work. So it's a good resume type of thing. But he wanted it to go to Vimeo and Short of the Week and YouTube, and then so people could have access to it and more people could get a chance to see it. He goes, that's the road he wanted to take, and that's the road he did. But I was impressed as hell with the way they put that together, because I didn't find it that interesting, but I had more people from way back, from people I haven't talked to in 30, 40 years, and just fabulous. My wife just showed me a little clip, and she said the film festivals. Laurie and I went on tour because EJ was so busy doing his commercial work and his documentary work and his human interest story. Baby. And so and then Laurie said, and EJ had two babies within this. By the time we shot the documentary, they had two kids. That's how long this thing took.
Yeah.
But we went on the festival circuit, the film festivals, and it was in the short documentary category. It won in some of the most prestigious festivals in the world, up in Detroit and up at Flicker's, the Rhode Island Film Festival. We were in Boston, Connecticut, Mystic Festival, IFF Boston, and just all over the place. It actually went over to Australia. I mean, this thing was huge.
Wow.
So it's kind of neat watching comments and say, wow, this guy seems pretty cool and good for him. And as I'm reading it, I'm like just coming out of UPS. Staggering out of loading crates going, they know that documentary is true, right? Because people think I made that stuff up. Let's go in and pretend you work at McDonald's. Like, no, it's all real. It's real. It's a real deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
and it was definitely
a lot of fun.
I would definitely encourage people to watch that documentary anyway, and I will leave it in the description of this video.
Thank you.
Brian, thanks a million for your time today. I'd love to have you back on again sometime soon because we have so much more to fit in.
I'll see you tomorrow. I got nothing. That's wonderful.
Thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you so much. God bless. And we will talk to you soon. And thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate it. And Laurie, say hi. Come here. No, come here. Come here. Can Laurie say hi?
Let's see the woman behind the man.
Yeah, the woman behind the man.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, Laurie.
I get it. Hi. Stop. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You.
Thanks, Brian. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful.
Absolute
Thank
pleasure.
You so much.